Um, so last week, if you were on the call last week or saw the replay, we talked about as a new Investment Dominator user, what are the first steps you need to do to get your letters out. So we talked about customizing your site, getting your company information in there, updating your profile with your signature file at least, and then I pointed you in the direction of how to do that if you weren't familiar, or how to create a digital signature. Um, my assumption is that everybody has at least done that part of it, and so I want to talk a little bit about the next steps. Assuming that you're at the point where you loaded the list and you generated the letters, I want to talk about what to start doing next, because obviously once you send these letters out, we get a very good response rate in this industry. So you are going to get phone calls. Now, if you send them out yourself in the mail, it typically takes the normal amount of time, let's say 4 days or so, for it to get to the person's house. They take a look at it and they start giving you a call, I would say, the next week. If you send it through a print house like letterprinting.net, the very fastest that I know of that they can do is actually if you pay them an extra $25, you can rush the order. And from the time that you place the order, the time that it actually gets put in the post office system is actually 8 days. So then you got to count like another 3-4 days after that before people get the letters. So it is a little longer of a process if you use a mailing house, but it is easier, obviously. If you go through your mailing house, you don't have to print the letters, you don't have to stuff them, you don't have to stamp them or anything. So having said that, I wanted to mention that because of the timeline for new users. If you sent out the letter through a mailing house and it's been a week, and no phone calls, that's perfectly normal. Like I said, you can always call them and ask them the timeline, but what I have noticed is that the very fastest that they can do is 8 days it gets into the post office system. So really you're looking at 12 days from the time that you start, from the time you send it out to the time that you get the phone calls. All right, so I wanted to bring that up. Having said that, let's talk a little bit about when you start getting these phone calls back, because I do get a lot of questions from new users about that, and even if you have been using the Investment Dominator, you might not be processing the incoming calls the proper way. And when I say the proper way, there is a couple of rules you want to follow, and it really comes, you kind of do this with any CRM, because with any CRM, most CRMs, let's say, depending on what you're doing with it, there is a chance that you might create a duplicate record. And I'm going to talk about that because depending on your processes, you're going to create more duplicate records than you need, or you can keep them down to a minimum where you might get a few duplicate records, and then you got to fix those. But what I talk about duplicate records is the scenario of when in the beginning, like I mentioned last week, you are uploading your list, right? You're getting a prospect list from the county that has owners' names, it has owners' addresses, and you're loading that into the system. Now you send out your mail. When the owners contact you back, at this point, there's a depending on what you do, you have a chance of creating a duplicate record. So I want to talk about the proper way. The proper way is they get your letter and they do one of two things. Either they're going to call you, because that's what the letter says, to call you, or they're going to go to your website. Now, if they call you, you want to log into the software. Okay, you're going to log in like this. You're going to go to the land deals, right, if it's the land deals, and you're going to click on this where it says search by. You're going to search for their record, and you're going to do it, the easiest way to do it, you can do it by name and all that kind of stuff and company name, but the very easiest way to do it is by the letter reference number, assuming that they have the letter in front of them, which 95% of the people do when they call you, because they're getting your phone number from that, and so they have it right in front of their face. So you're just going to ask them, what's the reference number on the bottom right corner of the letter or the envelope? So just to show you what that looks like, I'm going to just choose one of these records, like John, let's say, and I'll generate one letter here. So let's say John gets this letter, and John calls you. All right, so like I said, you could search by first name John, but there's probably many Johns in the system. So the best way is to go owner ID letter reference number. Now, I do want to make a point here that this letter reference number is not this number, okay? And I will show you what I mean. Here's John Carl. The number right here for John Carl is 22539. This is not his letter reference number. His letter reference number is this one right here, 9623. So 9623. When John calls, you say, hey, what's the number that's on the bottom right-hand corner? I can look up your record. And John's going to say, okay, it's 9623, sorry. 9623. So you type that in, you hit search. Up come John Carl's record, okay? This is the proper way to do it. And then from here, you're going to open up this record where it says edit. You're going to click on it, and you're kind of going in order. So the first question is the property status. Now, when you mail out the letter, it should be in this mailed letter 1 status. So really what you're doing is you're moving it from mailed letter 1 to pending preliminary research, which is just the next status down, okay? Because really the next step for you, if you think about it in next steps, is that you're going to do some research and you're going to send him, John, out on offer. So the first thing when you get this person on the phone is move it to pending preliminary research. And then you're going to just say, okay, John, is there anybody else on title with you? And John might say, no, it's just me. Or he might say, yeah, it's actually owned by, my wife is on title, my kids are on title, or whatever. So you could put in a second owner information here. Now, it doesn't have to be like 100% accurate, because keep in mind, and this is another thing that a question that I get asked a lot as far as new users, new people that haven't done deals this way ask quite a bit is the questions that you ask the owner calling in, you got to take with a grain of salt, because number one, they might not know the answer. Like they might think, oh, I think my grandmother's on title. I think my kids might be on title, but I'm not really sure. So there's a scenario where they're not really sure. There's also a scenario where they are, in like some of the further questions down, they're just not going to tell you the truth. So in either case, you're just really inputting information at this point. And really the biggest thing is building rapport. So you're asking these questions to, number one, establish that you know what you're doing. You're an investor and you've done this all the time, even if it's your first time, and you're asking the right questions. Now, whether they know the answers to those questions or not, it doesn't matter, because you can just tell them, okay, well, we'll just, I'm going to do my own research and I'll get that information. But it's more of a conversation, right? And you're trying to feel out the owner. So kind of don't try to get the most accurate information from the owner, because you might not get it. It's more of a process of building rapport and taking down what information the owner knows. Because, for example, if an owner tells you, and Jack talks about this in the Land Profit Generator a lot, is if the owner just tells you, I know nothing about this property, so whatever you want to do research on it, do your research, but I've never seen it. I've never done anything with it. I actually didn't even remember I had it until you sent me a letter. That, you want to make a note of that, right? Because that person is not anywhere near attached to this property. Versus a person that knows every little thing about the property and said, even if they live out of state, they might say something like, yeah, I visited that property, 6 months ago. It's really great. It has a bunch of trees on it. I love it. I might sell it at the right price type of conversation. Then if you feel out that type of a conversation, it's a very different person in terms of motivation, and that might affect your offer. Okay, and Jack talks about that in the Investment Dominator, so I'm going to refer you to his modules when it comes to that. But in regards to the Investment Dominator, you want to just kind of ask these questions. If there's a second owner on title, is it owned by a company like an LLC or a trust? We would consider a company as well. You could enter that in there, and the company name. So again, if they don't know this, or you just skip it, and you do want the phone number. That's why it's got a little asterisk there. So if they have a phone number, you obviously want to either check your caller ID and write it down and ask them, hey, is this a good number for you if I have any questions throughout this process? or if you don't have caller ID, you just ask them what's a good phone number in case they have any questions throughout this process. You want to verify their address because you already had preloaded it before, but there are situations where the county record, it gives you a bad address and it got forwarded through the post office because let's say they moved in the last 2 weeks. It might have been sent to them. Obviously it got sent to them because they called you back, but it might have been a case where it got forwarded. So when you verify the address, sometimes they say, no, there's actually a different address, I moved, and you can get that updated one. So you want to do that. You want to make sure, obviously, that you're talking about land here. If it's about a house, and it's like, actually, no, it's, we put a house on it a few years back and the county doesn't know about it, then you want to change the record from land to house. And when you do that, it's going to come up with a little prompt when you save it that you're switching the record over. But I do want to make you aware that it's going to move the record from your land deals section to the house deals section once you do that. But that's a very rare case anyways. I just wanted to bring up that there are two separate scenarios, one for land, one for houses. So as soon as you switch the type of the property over to a house, then all the paperwork and everything changes. Same thing if it has a mobile home on it. It's a different process, so it's going to move over to the house section. And that's, by the way, also why we have those two sections built into the investment dominator is every once in a while you will get a situation where, the county thinks it's land, so that's why you loaded it in as land, but, they might have put a mobile home on it, and therefore we're going to treat it a little bit differently. All right, so the other thing is obviously most owners don't know the legal description, and even if they did, it's kind of hard to take that over the phone, so it's not one of these asterisk fields. This is something that you would get from the county because you could just copy it over from the county record and paste it in there. So you will be getting this, but you'll be doing it in your preliminary research stage, not necessarily asking the owner for that information. The other thing is the property address. Now here you might ask them if they know for this reason. Counties may not, if it's vacant land, might not save that information. Property address or the longitude and latitude, but the owners might have that somewhere. So you can ask them that. They might say, yeah, I have the address written down. I went there before. And again, take this with a grain of salt. It could be incorrect. You're going to have to verify this against the short legal and the data that you get from the county later on. But whatever they have, you want to take down. So you want to keep going through this record, verifying the information you already have loaded in the system, but also asking the additional stuff, like, do you know the zip code that the property is in? They might have this, and it will speed up your comping to just ask them that question up front, and if they have that. But like I said, there's probably a good chunk, like maybe even 50% of the people that know nothing about these properties. So don't let that throw you off. If they keep saying, hey, you know what, I told you I haven't seen this property before, then you're just going to be, oh yeah, just no problem. Just if you don't mind, stay on the line with me another 2 minutes, and I'll just go through some questions. You just tell me if you know it or not, and we'll go from there. So it's a very casual conversation where you're just verifying information, trying to get information from them. Now these fields right here, the property dimensions you can get from the county. The terrain, sometimes you cannot get that from the county, like if it's flat or if it's on a hill. You might also get some good insight from the buyer or from the seller in this case about that. Like he might say, or they might say, yeah, it's right on a cliff. That's why I've never done anything with the lot or something like that. You might not be able to figure that out easily with the county unless they have a good GIS system with a topographical map. So getting that information from the owner is going to speed up that process. Zoning, they probably don't know. They might know. But again, this might be something you get from the county, and all this information like the taxes, the annual base taxes, basically what they owe every year for taxes. Again, they probably don't know this information. The HOA fee, if they do know that there is an HOA, I would definitely make note of that because that might not be filed with the county as well or hard to get to. So if they tell you like, oh yeah, there's an HOA there, I pay the fee. Even if they don't know what the fee is, definitely make a note of that because that's going to be harder to verify. You're going to have to do a little bit of research to find out what the HOA fees are in that neighborhood. All right, so just going through back taxes again, this is one of those ones that the owners may not tell you the truth on. They might not know. So you definitely want to verify this. So they might think they owe $1,000 in back taxes, when in fact, when you look it up, they owe $2,500 in back taxes or something like that. So again, even if they tell you, yeah, I only owe $500 in back taxes, you're gonna, again, after the call, you're gonna go and verify this stuff with the county and make sure, because in the land case, your offer includes the back taxes. So you definitely want to be accurate with that. So I'm not going to go, you kind of get the idea. You're asking the questions. You're asking these as questions. And obviously, when you get down to this part right here, this part right here, owner's interest in the property, this is very important to be asking these questions of the actual owner. Okay, because these are the owner's opinion. Now, another question I always get is what they tell you here, does that affect your offer? It's kind of a common land profit generator question, and Jack answers it in detail in the system. But basically, no. I mean, you're getting their opinions, and you're using that to gauge how much they value that property, how much they're attached to their property is more accurate. But you're not really, like, if somebody says, oh, this property is worth $30,000 and I know that for a fact, that doesn't matter. You still are going to do your own research, and you're still going to comp it out yourself, because your offer is going to be based on that. Obviously, under admin only property research, this is for you to do your, add your notes about the call, things like that. And then you're not really coming up with an offer at this point, right? You're just on the phone with a person. So all this stuff right here is you leave blank until after you do your research, your preliminary research. And then all your property listing information, that obviously you don't even mess with this stuff until you get to the point where you bought the property. So all this you just leave blank. Transaction information, only this is only filled out when you're actually doing the deal, because it's the the transaction information is basically information of how much you bought it for, how much you sold it for. Now, if it's a deal where you think it's a home run deal, what you could do is highlight it, and highlighting a record, like let me do that. If we go back over here, highlighting a record basically pushes the record to the top. So like, here's a good example. Is I take these bottom records, these two, Samuel and Randall, I'm going to push them to the top by highlighting them. And when I highlight them, they're always going to be at the top. So even if I have like a list of, 30 people that want offers, maybe 2 of them are like really home run deals where the people like really don't care about their property and they just want to give me the property. I'm going to highlight those, and those ones I'm going to just be very interested in processing. Obviously, I'm going to make an offer on everyone, but that's the one I'm going to focus on. All right, and the last thing I want to make a point on is about so you're going to take the information, you're going to save the record by updating the record, or at the bottom we have an update record. They're both do the same thing. They basically save the information, and when you do that, you're going to see this little thing up here. It says record has been updated. Very important, okay? So that's how you know you did it. The other thing is it's going to move the records along in these these little buckets. So your record that you just processed is now going to be under the offer requests bucket. And so you'll start seeing records under here, because everything under this offer request are going to be in that pending preliminary research status. And therefore, you're also going to have more options, right? So let me just show you, instead of just talking about it, I'm going to change some of these statuses over to pending preliminary research. So we got 4 people in there, and you can see if I go to offer requests, now I got 4 people under this. Also, under my reporting area, under my reports, I have 4 records under my offer request bucket, and if I click on that, I can actually load the 4 records. So that's another way of getting to it, a more visual way to get to this information is by looking under reports. Okay, and you'll notice that this the ones that are pending preliminary research have allowed me to make offers. It has an offer calculator in there, whereas the ones in prospect don't have that information. So as I mentioned last week, options appear magically when you're in the right stages. That's how this system is built. Okay. Now, I did mention earlier that, okay, that's the scenario if somebody called you. Now, what if they read your letter, and if I can bring that up, they read your letter and they go to your website instead. Okay, they're going to go to your website instead of calling you, which some people do, and they're going to land here. Now, they're going to say, okay, you're going to sell your land for cash. In the letter, it tells them to click on this land, sell your land for cash tab, or sell your land tab, and they're going to fill out this information. Now, if they fill out this information and they include the first name or the company name here, the last name, and the optional reference number, which is the number that's on the letter, right on the bottom right-hand corner that we talked about earlier, if they include that, they can actually look up their record with you and then just proceed to making an offer really quickly. Now, there is a scenario where, because this is an optional field, they just enter in their name and they skip the reference number. If they do that, they will create a duplicate record in the system. And there is a good reason why we have it this way. Not because we like duplicates, but because this website right here is not just used for your letters. It's also being indexed by Google and things like that. So if somebody just, doesn't read your letter and they find you through Google, we still want them to be able to submit an offer request. And in that case, they're not going to have a reference number. So we make this field optional. Now, one thing I will say is to cut down on the duplicates that happen that way, we like to put a video above that. And the video is a 20-second video or so, 18 seconds I think it is. You can actually take this video off of YouTube. We created it for students, and then embed it on your sell your land page, just like we have it here. But this video is, like I said, 20 seconds long, and all it does is it basically shows, hey, we sent you this letter, and in the letter there's this reference number, and we point to it at some point in here. She points to it, and she says, take that letter and fill out this form right below this video. So she's really explaining, okay, take the name that's up here, put it in there, take the last name, put it in here, and then type in your reference number. Having video instructions like this will greatly reduce the amount of duplicates in the system, okay? Like I said, we don't want to just prevent it altogether because that would prevent all the people coming from Google and all that kind of stuff. So we do keep this in on purpose. Now, if every once in a while you get the person that doesn't pay attention to anything, right, and they will just fill this out however way they want, and in that case, you're going to have a duplicate anyways, no matter what you do. In that case, what you want to do is, first of all, you can locate these duplicates. You're going to come across these duplicates because when you go to do your preliminary research and you go to save information on the record, it'll come up with an error that says there's a duplicate in the system. At that point, and I'm going to kind of go over to the user guide again that we talked about last week, that you access through the help section. At that point, you want to merge the duplicate records, and this is the this is the article about that. But basically, in the system, what we have now is two records with the same APNs, right? One of the record had the APN when you imported it, and the other one was created when the owner went to that site and created that duplicate record. So what you have to do is you have to add something to that record, like -temp. This will make sure that the APNs are not exactly matching, and this will allow you to transfer the information from the new record, which the owner created on the website, to the record that you originally created when you sent out the letter. And you want to actually do it in that manner. You want to move information from the new record back to the old record because you want to keep the old record in the system that has all the history of what happened. You want to keep that one in there, and you want to delete this new one that that the owner created it for you. All right, so I do want to mention it should be a very rare scenario. If it's happening more to you than more times than not, then you want to go back and watch this video and look at your entire process of what you're doing. Because if you're following the process that I just explained, it should be very little, like maybe 1 or 2 a month that you might have to merge, and then that can be done in that by following this article that I just talked about. All right. Now, having said that, that's all I want to cover as far as like the teaching portion of this. I want to get to your questions now. Hopefully, I didn't mention it, but if you have questions, use the chat box in there to send me some questions. It can be about what I just talked about. It can be about something else, totally. And we're just going to take the remaining of this call and go through your questions, okay? All right, I'm going to open up the chat box here, and I got some questions. Okay, Mark is saying, when somebody inputs data on my web page, where is it put in the Dominator, and am I informed of it? Okay, yep, like I might have answered this for you, but let's go over it again. So when somebody fills out this, this form, there's a couple things that happen. And let's just take this John guy, actually, for example, so you can just see it with, see what's happening. So I'm going to take John Carl, right? And John, we're going to send him a letter. So I'm going to generate a document. And this is the letter we sent to John, okay? And John's going to go to our website. Hold on a second. I don't want to do that. I want to go to our website like this. And John is going to basically type in his name. Oh, he's going to go to the Sell Your Land site. He's going to watch the video, hopefully, if we have a video there. He's going to put in his name, John Carl, and then he's going to go down here and put in his 9623, 9623, and click Next, okay? It looks up his record, right? This is his record in the system. He's going to add information in here, like what's my phone number, blah, 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 right? And then he's going to fill out what he knows about the property, and then he's going to verify that that is correct. And he's going to say Finish Offer Request. So once he does that, it's going to take him to this page right here, which you can also have a video on, right? Which we also recommend that you put a video here of you explaining the next steps, which is basically you're going to do some research, you're going to send him a written offer at that point, and it usually takes 7 to 10 days, okay? But let's say that, you know, you don't have anything. He gets a page that looks like this with a reference number on it. Now, in your system, which is really your question, how does it look? What's going to happen is 2 things. If you go into land deals right here, and you're actually going to probably be logging in like this, you're going to see 5 offer requests have been made right here. So you go there, you go under here, you go to reports, and you say 5 offer requests. You click on that, and you can see that John is one of these, right? That's one way. The other way is just to click on land deals, and then up at the very top, click on offer requests. And again, you get to the same area. You see John is there. Now, the other part of your question is, do you get notified? And the answer is yes. So in conjunction with the system moving it into the proper status, which is how the system is based, you also, when we talked about last week, setting your company information under customized site, company information, you set a company email address. And this company email address gets a notification that an offer request has been made, okay? So that's the notification there. But even if that goes to your spam or whatever, you can still come into this area and check on it. Now, what we personally do is we dedicate 1 or 2 days to making offers. So we don't just like jump in here all the time and just make offers on in real time. What we will do is take information either when people call us, right? We'll put them into this pending preliminary research. And then also at that point, at the same time, people are going to the website and sending in offer requests. So what we have is, let's say that we pick Thursday to make our offers. We'll come in here on Thursday and go to the offer reports, and then we'll go to offer requests, pull this list. We might have like 15, 20 people that we need to make offers now on. And so we'll just go through there and do our research and make the offers all at once. And then once we make the offers, we're moving them into the next status, right? Because everything is status-based, which is option offer sent. So now the system knows that we sent out offers. And that's how we're keeping track about who's still pending an offer versus the person we already send offers to and things like that. So hopefully that answers your question there. All right, so let me go. Oh, we got quite a bit of questions coming in, which is great. But let me scroll back up on the list. All right, so Brian asks, are lists from Agent Pro 247 okay for the Investment Dominator? Are there known problems with working with Agent Pro 247 lists? Do many students use Agent Pro lists? Okay, Brian, so your first part of your question is, are Agent Pro 247 lists okay for the Investment Dominator? They're okay for the Investment Dominator in the sense that county lists are okay for the Investment Dominator. So what I mean by that is Agent Pro is a third-party company that is a list broker. They will output a list in whatever format that they desire, and they can change it at any time. Now, they are okay in the sense that they have the information like APN, owner's name, owner's address, things like that, right? Those are our minimum fields. Like if I go back to what we talked about last week, which was the, let me go back to the user guide here, which is like how to import. Import land. All right, so if you remember from last week, there's 11 fields that are required to get data into the Investment Dominator. Agent Pro has this information except for the type field. They have all this information. But for example, I know for a fact that Agent Pro doesn't call it first name, last name, company. They call it owner's F name, I think, owner's L name. But it really doesn't matter what they call it because you need to change it to these 11 fields. So it doesn't matter if you get it from the county, which is where all data originates in the land profit generator system. Everything comes from the county. Agent Pro gets it from the county. Or if you're getting it through Agent Pro or you're getting it through Rebo Gateway or whatever list broker you're trying to use, they're going to put it in their own format with their own names of their field. And what you always have to do is change the names of the fields to match what we require here. And the only one that I'm aware of that Agent Pro does not have is the type field. Okay, and again, the type field is where we're setting whether it's either an individual or a company. Okay, so this is something that we require, but Agent Pro 247 doesn't have this field. So when you're processing your data and getting that basically formatted for the Investment Dominator, you have to take that into account. And this is the one field that you're going to have to add based on an Excel rule or whatever program you're using to format it. And that's how you're going to do it. So to answer your question, yes, the data itself is okay for the Investment Dominator, but the headers are going to be different. So you're going to have to change the headers. And in the case of Agent Pro, at least, you're going to have to create this type field. So it really, in my mind, there is no difference between Agent Pro and the county data or anything like that because they're going to have it in their own format. Now, to answer your other questions, yes, many students are using Agent Pro. In fact, like my wife does land deals, and when she first started, she used Agent Pro for everything. And then after a while, she's just using county data. Because in the end, everything comes from the county, right? So as you get a little bit more familiar with how to deal with the county and you're a little bit more patient with dealing with the county bureaucracy and people that work in there, then you can work directly with the county. And then you don't need an Agent Pro because Agent Pro is really the broker to get you the data. But what they're doing is going to the county. So having said that, yeah, a lot of students use Agent Pro. A lot of students use Agent Pro for the Investment Dominator. It definitely works, but you do have to follow these rules. You can't just download a list from Agent Pro and then import it into the Investment Dominator because Agent Pro is a third-party company. They do things their own way, and we have our own rules in regards to importing. Okay, so I just want to make that clear. Hopefully that answers your question. Vince asks, is this video on my web page? And I think you're referring, Vince, to the video that I showed you on the selling site. And the answer is no. Right now, let me show you what you probably have on there. Is when it comes to your selling site land or your sell your land page, which is basically this page right here, sell your land. You probably have nothing in there. It's blank. Okay, looks like that. When it is blank, and we talked about this last week, when something is blank, you have default data in there. By default, the data looks like this. It's just text. Okay, it basically says the same thing as a video, but it's just text. Now, the reason why we encourage you to use a video is because people can understand other people talking on video versus skim reading, which is what most people do on the internet. In a combination of both is probably best, but most people respond well to videos. So now the reason why we don't preload this video on your site is because this video is very generic. Now you can use it if you like it, but in reality it should be yourself, right? You're trying to build rapport. So you should actually recreate this video yourself. And actually, if you want to be really effective, go out on a piece of land. It doesn't have to be a piece of land you own. It could be your backyard or a park. But just be in a piece of land and say something like, hey, this is whatever, this is Alex. I buy land just like this behind me, and I sent you a letter just like this. So you can do something like that where you're almost introducing yourself as a person and then telling them what to do in 20 seconds. So in a perfect world, you probably want to customize all this stuff and create a video for yourself. But if you want to just get started with a video, you can just come over here to the YouTube channel for the Investment Dominator and look for the sample buying site video. And you want to go under Share, and then you want to go under Embed. And what I did was there's these options under Show More. So you want to make sure all of these options right here are unchecked. I do believe that by default, YouTube checks this stuff. So you want to uncheck it. And then you want to choose like a smaller size probably. And once you do that, you want to copy over this embed code that YouTube will give you and come back over to your customized site. And then you want to go to your buying site. And then we're going to scroll down to where it says sell your land page, right? This is the page. And because it's HTML like this, I'm going to go back to YouTube. You can see right here, this is a bunch of gibberish code. This is HTML. Because it's HTML, you're going to want to go to the source tab, which is where you enter in HTML. And it's highlighted here. You can see that. You're going to paste that code that YouTube gives you in there. And then you click on source again, and that gets you back into preview mode. You kind of see the outline of the video, even though it doesn't show the video here. But let's say that I want to center this right now. I'm going to click it, and then I'm going to highlight it. And I'm going to click the center tag right here, and that'll center my video. And when I save this now, I'm going to overwrite the default text, right? This text right here is going to be overwritten with my video. So I'm going to refresh this, and you can see now I have the video in there. So it's easy to add, but that's the reason why we don't add it in there for you, because we want you to do your own video. If you have any questions about this, I do have a tutorial on the user guide that goes over this. So if I went a little quick for you guys, either you can go back and watch the replay of this, or you can go look on our user guide. I do have a video on embedding embedding videos into your page. All right, but it would work the same way if you created your own video. You would just create your own video. This was shot on a cell phone, so it's not like we had an awesome camera. We just shot it with a cell phone, and we uploaded it straight from our cell phone to YouTube. So you can do the exact same thing. All right, moving on. Let me see where we're at here. Is this video on my web page? Okay. Okay, so Preston is asking, how do I get rid of the duplicate records that are created while uploading new mailing lists? When I upload a list, it usually has some issues associating with it. So I can re-upload the fixed file and it creates hundreds of duplicates. Okay, Preston, um, there's something wrong with the process of your list, because the system checks for duplicates when you upload them two different ways. And so I want to explain that so that you know how to prevent it. So in your list, when the investment dominator is reading your list, when you go under import, so if I'm under land deals here and I'm importing a list, right? When you hit upload, what's happening in the background is it's breaking down your list, and it's checking for a few different things. Number one, it checks for duplicate owners, and the way it checks for duplicate owners is that it checks the address of the owner. So if your addresses of the owners are matching, then it's not going to create a duplicate for that. Now, you might say, well, okay, well, it is creating a duplicate. And what you want to do is actually check two of the records that you think are duplicate and see if there's anything out of place. Because literally, if there's like one says P.O. Box, whatever, and it has a suite number, and the other one has a different suite number, that's not going to match as a duplicate. It's only looking at matching owner addresses to figure out if the owner is a duplicate. Now, the second part of the duplication check that it looks at is the property itself. So how it's determining if the property is a duplicate or not is it checks the APN, the property state, and the property county, okay? So if anything matches with those three criteria, then it's not going to create a duplicate. So again, if your APNs are slightly different, in like, for example, if at one list you have APNs all with dashes in them, and another list you got from, let's say, Agent Pro, or let me back up a second. Let's say that originally you got list A from the county. The county sent you a list directly, and the county gave you this list, and it had the numbers in there, and they had a bunch of dashes in there. But the numbers, the numbers were the same. So you upload that list in there. Now you're going to have a bunch of records in there with a bunch of APNs with dashes in there, state and county. Now let's say that you go back and you, instead of using the county, you use something else, or a different department in the county for that matter. Or let's say that you use Agent Pro for your next list. Now, Agent Pro might use the exact same APNs, but they format it differently, like they take out the dashes, or they add some zeros to it, or something like that. That's not uncommon. Now, if you upload that list, the system will create a duplicate in the sense that it'll have one record that says 123-456, and then the other record will be the same exact property in real life, but what you have uploaded is 123-456 with no dashes. So that can happen, but if the records absolutely match, that's something that it's kind of impossible in the system. If you have problems or you think that what I'm saying is not true, go ahead and open up a ticket and actually send me the property IDs of these, and we'll take a look at it and let you know exactly what's different about them. But the way that it breaks down the files and everything is actually impossible for that to happen. So I would like to actually look at your records in that case. And in that case, go under Help. And I want you to go under Help, and I want you to click the middle option, because this one comes to me. Fill out this form right here, and in the detailed response, give me an example of at least, let's say, 3 records where you think they're matching, and we'll take a look at the history of how they were created and everything like that, and let you know exactly what's going on. Okay, hope that helps. But for everybody else, you shouldn't really run into this issue. This is something I've not really heard of, and like I said, we use this system all the time. So I would just take a look at the process of how you're getting the list, how they're being formatted, and particularly those fields, the owner address fields, and also the property APN, the property county, and the property state. All right. Let's see here. The next question is from Vince. Vince says, what type of labels are being used for when the offers are getting mailed out? Okay, so just for everybody to follow along, what Vince is talking about is when you get to the part where you're sending out offers, there is a, and let me actually come up with an example here. You actually have to put in an offer amount to generate offers. All right, so when you get to the offer amount stage, you can see here it says download envelope labels, and this is because when we get to this stage right here, we're not sending it as a letter in an envelope. We're actually downloading the cover letter, the offer or the option depending on what we're doing. So these, either one of these documents right here, and possibly the Exhibit A. Okay, now we put this in an actual 9 by 12, I believe the size is, envelope, and we print off labels and put that on the envelope, which are these labels right here, which generate, I think it's 10 to a page. All right, now to answer your actual question, go to the user guide and type in resources, I think, or just type in resource maybe. Yeah, type in resource, and we have an article about the printing supplies that we use. Obviously, this is just this is just what we use, so you can use whatever you want. It's not necessarily the cheapest or the most expensive. It's just what we use. So, for example, this is we use this for our paper when we print off the original or the neutral letters. This is the envelopes that we use. But to answer your question, what labels are we using? It should be on here, file folders, labels. We're using these labels right here. Yeah, these labels right here. So you can just look at that. You could find it locally at Office Max. Sometimes we just get it from Office Max, but that's the size. So it's 10 to a sheet, 2 by 4, 2 inches by 4 inches labels, and they're just standard, like Avery, I think, is the brand. Okay. Where are we now? Hopefully that answers your question. Vince, let's see here. All right. Robert says he has a silly question. Let's not take up everyone's time on this. Okay, so well, let me just read it through. Let me see. Okay. Well, Robert can't log into the Investment Dominator. I will mention it. Robert, if you're getting a problem of logging in because of a password, or saying you don't have a password, then try the forgot password option that's on the login page. Otherwise, go ask our general support. Obviously, if you can't get into your Investment Dominator, then you need to contact general support from jackboschsupport.com and ask them for your to resend your or reset. We can't actually see your password, so you will actually have to reset it back to your default one, and then you can go in there and change it later on. So that's kind of how it works. But contact our support or call us at 602-712-0175, which is our support line, our regular support line, or go to jackboschsupport.com and send us a message. Ask us to reset your password if you haven't just reset it yourself through the forgot password process, and we'll be happy to do that. All right, moving on. Can we? Vince asked if you guys can use the video that I was talking about here. Yes, I think I mentioned that a couple times, but yes, you are totally fine with using this video. This is Christine. She used to work for us. She actually didn't really want this to be published. She's kind of a private person, but Jack says that you can use this if you want. So, and it is generic. It doesn't mention our company or anything. So if you want to use a video, go ahead and use that. I think some people are already using it because I see a lot of views on this. There's like 700 views. So, anyways, yes, you can use that video if you would like. But it probably is more effective if you create your own. Let's see here. David says, I was not here for the last webinar. Can you do a quick summary of the quick start process, or is there a recording of that video? Yes, yes and no. So yeah, I won't spend the time to do the quick summary right now because I think a lot of these, if I look at the list of people who are on the call, I think a lot of people were on the last call. But to answer your question, yes, there is. All of these calls are recorded, including this one, and including ones I did before. You want to get to it by the user guide. And again, and what I will summarize from the last call is how to get to the user guide. So, David, what you want to do is when you're in the Investment Dominator, you want to click on Help. Then you want to click on User Guide, which is this link right here. Right here. Click on User Guide. And then if you scroll down, it kind of works like a blog. There's lots of things being added, lots of things that have been added, and they're not in particular order as far as importance. But what you'll see is some of these are live training calls with dates. So the last one we did was 6/21. So if you click on this, this is last week's call, and the videos are always going to be on the right-hand side. So if you click on that, it's going to load the video, and then you just watch it on the video. Same thing for calls that we did in the past. If you just keep scrolling down, we did some calls back in April and whatnot, and then before, and then there's a lot of other stuff in there. But yeah, go back and watch those videos because that's the reason we record them. All right, so I'll kind of move on to the next one. So Steve asks, how do I load my leads from my downloads to letterprinting.net? Okay, so Steve, this is more of a letterprinting.net question because this assumes that you've got an account with letterprinting.net. You're at the point where you're going to upload your leads that you had downloaded from the Investment Dominator, which should be in your downloads folder, right, at that point. And that's what you're asking is, how do you get the leads from your computer to letterprinting.net? So I'm going to answer this generally speaking, but also keep in mind that people on this call, some of them are not using letterprinting.net, so this might not apply to everyone. And this is more of a letterprinting.net question, which is a third-party program. Now, since we use letterprinting.net ourselves quite a bit, I'll answer the question. The question is, how do you get the leads from your computer, because you've downloaded them from the Investment Dominator, right, to your computer. Now, how do you get those leads into letterprinting.net, which is a separate system? What you do, quite simply, is when you create an order with letterprinting.net, they create what's called an order ticket, okay? This order ticket is kind of like your reference point for your mailing with them, for your mailing campaign. So the order ticket includes what you paid for the ticket, but there's also 3 things that they require as part of that order ticket. Or 2 things, let's say, your list and your template file, okay? So you need to upload your template file, which is your letter template file, and in this case, you're going to upload 2 template files, one for your letter itself and one for your envelope itself. And then the third thing that you're going to upload is the list that is going to be in your downloads folder, okay? And this list is in a .csv list. It's got the date. I'll just show you what it looks like so everybody's on the same page. Because whether you're using letterprinting.net or another print house, this kind of works the same way. Basically, you're going to download this list right here if you are using a print house. Okay, this is only for the people that are using a print house. You're going to download this list right here. And you can see it's downloading here on the corner of my screen. And you can see if I open it, it's a mailing list, okay? This is actually for letterprinting.net or whatever mailing house you're using. You'll notice that the name of this file is Prospect Letters Mailing List Today's Date, okay? So, and it's only today's date because I did it today. If I did this last week, it's going to be in your downloads folder as whatever date I downloaded it at, okay? But in your downloads folder, you're going to see this file. This is the file that you're going to send to letterprinting.net because letterprinting.net is going to merge the letters for you on their end because they have their own way of printing, okay? And most print houses have their own way of printing. So they require your letter template, your envelope template, and a list. And that's how you're going to find it. It's going to be in your downloads folder. It's going to be named with the date, and it's going to say something like Prospect Letters. It's all in the same format, like I just showed you. And how you actually upload it is when you go on their system, so you're on letterprinting.net system, you open up that order ticket, and they have an upload option. that's similar to our import option here. They have a similar one to this, but basically you choose the file that's in your downloads folder and you upload it to that order ticket. Okay, and that's how they do it. But again, they're a third-party company. Any questions like that should be directed directly to them. I'm just answering it because I use them a lot, and students use them a lot, and so I know that's how their system works. Now, if they change that in the future and somebody's watching this recording, then I don't know what they're going to change it to in the future. So the best possible way you can go about this is to call them and say, hey, I'm a new user. I need you to help me upload this list. I got this list on my downloads folder. You need it. I need to send it to you. Walk me through how to do it. And they're going to show you how to do it. But currently, it's a matter of uploading it to their order ticket. Okay, having said that, also, because we use letterprinting.net ourselves quite a bit, you can just go on our user guide again and type in letterprinting.net, I think. And the second one down here is a tutorial on how to work with letterprinting.net, all the steps that you need to do to set up the account and send them that template file and what I just talked about. Okay? All right. Hopefully that answers that question here. And let's go move on to Heather. Let's see. Heather says, on your neutral letter, you have written a signature. Your written signature is a JPEG. I have a JPEG. I don't want there, and I can't delete it. Okay, yes. And how do you do that? Okay, yes. You cannot delete things once you upload them. What you can do is overwrite them. I think I mentioned that on last week's call. So here I've got a signature, right? And you've got a signature. Now, if I don't want this signature, I can do a couple things. I can either upload a new signature, right? Let's just say that this is another signature, and I crop it. And therefore I'm replacing one signature file with another signature file. That can be done. And I apologize, my internet is a little bit slow right now, so it's just, and this is a big image, so it's taking forever to crop this. But I think you get the point. You can either replace the, you're replacing this old one with this new one if I save this. The other scenario is if you don't want to use a signature at all for some reason, which we don't recommend, but let's say that you want to just blank out the signature. The best way to do that is to actually upload a file that has a white space. So in this case, here's my signature file. Instead of cropping around the signature, which would, basically put in the signature like we have it, I just crop around this. Let me do this one more time. Let me go upload the signature. I just crop a little space, and it even doesn't have to be that big, around the white part of it. And since this is completely white, what I'm doing is I'm replacing the signature with something that's blank. And that's a way to get rid of the signature, which is kind of your question. I don't know why you would want to do that. It's not something we would recommend to do. But what we'd rather you do is replace it with another signature. And like I mentioned last week, it doesn't have to be your actual signature, so don't worry about that if that's what you're worried about. It just has to look like a signature. It's more of a marketing thing. But you can go back to the video last week where we talked about that a little bit more. All right. Okay, we still got quite a bit of questions. Now, if go ahead and keep sending questions if you have it. When I get to the end of this list, I will probably end the call. So if you have questions as we go through this, type them in, and that way when I get to them, they're going to be answered. Otherwise, we might push some of these questions to next week. We are going over quite a bit, so I just want to make sure we keep on time. I know a lot of people have a lot of limited time on these calls. Okay, so moving on, Robert says also an enhancement idea. I'm gonna skip this, Robert, because what I want you to do, this is more of a feature suggestion, and I want to keep this to just calls questions. Robert, I mentioned this last week, but you might have not been on the call. When you have feature suggestions, please go to the help section and fill out this thing that says I have a suggestion. The reason we want you to do that is not because I want to avoid the comment or anything. We love these comments. We actually want to keep track of this stuff, and we also want to keep track of it in the sense of, are other people asking for the same thing? Is this something that everybody wants or needs, or is it's becoming a huge problem that we just have to bump up the list? So in order for us to effectively manage all the suggestions that come in and to prioritize them based on needs of the students, we want you to fill out this form, because we keep track of this stuff. It just doesn't go out to the universe. It just, we keep, organized track of this stuff, and we are implementing. In fact, before we end this call, I do want to show you a couple improvements we did in the system just last week, all of them based on user input, which were great suggestions, and multiple people asked for them, and like I said last week, we try to improve the software on a schedule of like at least 1 or 2 improvements a month. So, and these get pushed out to everybody. There's a lot of development and testing that happens way prior to that, but we try to get at least one of these out a month, and we're constantly improving the software. But the first part of that, the first step is to send us your suggestions so that we can look at them, internalize them, because we're also using the software ourselves as much as everybody else. And so we look at it in also the grand scheme of things on how we teach the program, how we do the program, or the methods. And if everything is in alignment and with what we teach, then we're definitely, and it's an improvement and it makes your life easier, we're definitely going to improve it. Okay, so I'm going to skip the feature suggestion stuff. If we get this, keep it to the questions for now, but I will point everybody back over to this help have a suggestion, because we do want to have that logged, because if I make a note now, I might not ever see this thing again. So let's try to get this all on this list. All right, moving on to Kenneth says, how are IDs generated using Agent Pro to obtain the list? Okay, it actually Kenneth, it doesn't matter what system you use to get the list. So, for example, you could get the list from the county, you could get lists from Agent Pro, you could get the list from Rebo Gateway. It doesn't matter the source of the list. The IDs have nothing to do with that. So when you're talking about IDs, I assume you're talking about these the 2 IDs that we use in the system, which one is the property ID, which is right here. One is the property ID, and one is the owner ID, which is what we use in the letter, okay? Those 2 IDs have nothing to do with the source of your list. So it doesn't matter if it comes from Agent Pro, it doesn't matter if it comes from the county. These IDs, and to answer your question, how are they generated? They're generated internally based on records you have in the system already and the records that you're importing. Okay, so originally, if we go back to that article where I talked about the import process, the help article right here, originally these 11 fields, you'll notice that none of them are ID fields. So you're not importing IDs, and the IDs have nothing to do with the APNs or anything like that. It's an internal ID that the system uses, and the reason we have 2 different IDs, one for the owner, one for the properties, is because it's very real scenario that an owner owns multiple properties. So therefore, the system has to create a unique ID for each property, and it also has one ID for the owner, right? Because it's one owner could own multiple properties, but we don't want to duplicate the owner, and we don't want to duplicate the property. So we have two IDs in the system, and they're just internally generated based on the fly when you import your list, and it's just based on what you already have in the system against what you're importing. And that's why, and the reason it's done that way, just by the way, is because it's a very real scenario that we go into the same areas every year. So that means a lot of these people, they don't, they're not going to sell these properties in a year's time. It's not like houses where the average person is moving around all the time. These lists are basically, I would say 90% of the people that own land this year are going to own land the next year. So when we import the list next year, we don't want to create another duplicate scenario. So when it's importing, it's checking for old IDs based on, like I told you before, the APN, property state, property, county, and also the owner's address. Okay, so if everything matches, it's not creating a new record, it's just updating the record. And if it's a brand new record, meaning you've never imported this record, it's a brand new APN, brand new owner's name, then it's creating a new record at that time, and in that time it assigns these two IDs to it, and these are just unique to the system. Okay, all done internally. I'm not sure that it really matters to know the answer to that, but that's the answer. I mean, it really doesn't matter because you're not really doing anything off of these IDs other than keeping track of them and asking them, what's on their letter. Everything else is kind of like kept track by the system. It's used internally by the system. Okay. All right. So Heather asks, skip trace means you are researching letters you got back. Well, no. Yes. Yeah, I think you're right with that. So here, skip tracing, what it means is returned mail. So Jack, in the Land Profit Generator course, and I'm going to refer back to that because you should watch, the modules in regards to that. But yes, the county holds this data originally. If you think about it, there's a good chunk of people that don't care about their property, and there's a good chunk of those people that don't care about their property so much so that when they move, they don't update the address with the county. And the county doesn't have the policy of tracking down people. They don't care. Okay, they want taxes, and that's it. So if somebody doesn't proactively call the county and tell them they have moved, the county is going to keep a bad address in their system. Now here you come along and you request the information from the county or from Agent Pro, who gets it from the county anyways. You mail to that person. That mail gets returned to you because it's a bad address. But it's actually a gold mine because those people own property and they probably forgot about the property. Now, if you can track them down, send them a letter, then they're these people that I'm talking about that I mentioned before that call you and they're like, they know nothing about their property. They're like, yeah, my grandfather gave it to me. I've never seen it. I don't know anything about it. I don't know if there's a fence on there. I don't know if it has trees on there. I don't know anything. Just, now that you brought it up to me, make me an offer and I'll look at it and we'll go from there. Those are really good leads, and that happens quite a bit. So what you can do is what we do, like we do everything in bulk. So as they come in, you're going to get the letters returned in the mail. You're going to, take a look at the code that's on the letter. So you don't even have to open it up. Just take a look at the code, the reference number that's on the letter, and look up that reference number. So let's say it was 6923, I think it was. Nope. Let's see. Go over here. 9623. I'm horrible at that. 9623. Let's say that his letter gets returned. All I would do is looking him up that way, and I check his record. I select his record, and then I change the status to skip trace. Okay. Now, what I do is I let this list build up. Right. I'm not like jumping through hoops for these people, but if I get, a good chunk of people, like 50 or 100 people, I can either come over here to the skip trace list right here and export them and send them to a skip tracer, right? That's why actually under generate documents, you can export just the people on your skip trace list, right? You could come in here, you could wait till there's 100 people on there. You can export this list and you can send it to a skip tracing service. Like there's services out there that will actually accept an Excel file from you and then just go through on there and find the people and then send you back their correct address. There's also services like TLO, which Jack mentions in the course, Spokio, LexisNexis. There's many different skip tracing services where you look up the records yourself one by one. And in that case, like we use TLO, we would go, and it might be something that you outsource to another company or like a VA or something like that, or it might be something you just do in your spare time. But you would go in there, open up the record, go into your skip tracing program, enter in the old address. They'll give you the new address. You enter in the new address. You replace the old address with the new address that you get from the skip tracing service. And then at that point, you're going to move the record from skip tracing to prospect, because once you move it to prospect, it's going to be put back into your mailing list. So the next time you do mailings, you're going to send them a letter, but this time it's going to go to the correct address. So that's exactly how you would process a skip tracing scenario person, or you get a returned letter. Okay, questions. Let me go over here. Okay, hopefully that answered your question. All right, Robert says, could you quickly show again how you added the yellow highlighted of the record? Yes, I will quickly show you that again. What you're talking about is highlighting records. All you have to do, I mean, there's many ways to do it, but what I was doing was selecting the records that I want to highlight. And then at the top of the table, you have all these options. Like it says, 3 records are selected. What do you want to do? So I want to highlight them. I'm going to highlight them, and then I'm going to press confirm, and it's going to highlight them. Now, the same thing if I want to unselect them. Like I find out that these are not great properties. I select the ones that we want to unhighlight. I select them. I click highlight again, but this time I change the option to unhighlight, and that will unselect these. Now it works the same, by the way, Robert, Robert asked the question. It works the same way on the buyer's list. I can select records on the buyer's list of people that are interested in buying property from me, and I want to move them to the top because I'm like, okay, these people have a budget for buying land and they're very interested, so I move those people to the top and I want to talk to them first. So it works, and it works under houses as well. So it's just kind of a general feature of the Investment Dominator. All right. You can also, by the way, like I said, you can do it a different way as well. You can actually go into the record by clicking on Edit. And if you're in the record, then it's all the way at the very bottom. There's options to highlight yes or no. Okay, it's the same thing. If you click yes, then it's going to highlight it. No is I'm not going to highlight it. By default, it's set to no. So if you just work on a record and you just update it, it's just going to be sent to no, but you could, when you're on the phone with them, you can just highlight it at that point. Okay, moving on. Wow, we got a ton more questions in here. All right, so let's see if we get through these. I apologize if I'm going quick. I am trying to get this call to a decent timeline, but I do understand you guys have questions. I do want to answer them. So if you guys are okay with it, I will continue. I guess if people need to drop off the line, they will. We'll do the recording. Now, if it's not super important question, I'm going to ask that you keep it, either send me a question through the help section and this middle option. This will come to me also. Or if it's something that can wait till next call, I would ask for you to wait till then. But I am going to go through, as long as you're sending me questions. I'm not going to end this call. So let's see here. David is saying that do we need Excel to run the Dominator, or can everything be done by the Dominator? Yeah, you can. The only thing that you need Excel, well, you don't need Excel, but if you wanted to format your list, that would have to be done in some kind of a data processing software like Excel. So what I mean by that is, earlier somebody had asked about, it might have been you, I don't remember who asked it, but basically, can we just take lists from Agent Pro and upload them into the Investment Dominator? The answer to that is no. You have to format it. You have to have that type field in there. You have to have the 11 fields that are required. Now, in order to do that and format it, you would need to run it through some kind of an Excel program or something like that. But what we say always is, don't spin your wheels trying to do that if you're not a data processor or you have any kind of experience with Excel or data processing. What we do recommend, and that's actually in our user guide, is that you post a job on Upwork. So if you type in Upwork here, we have a sample data processing post. This is what we would do, because when you post on Upwork this job, there's so many data processors out there. Like, in the U.S., outside the U.S. I mean, this is a common thing, right? Excel. I mean, many different businesses use data processing. So when you post a job like this, you're going to get people that will do these type of filtering jobs, um, processing jobs for as little as $5 that I've seen, but not on Upwork. But on Upwork, typically the cheapest I've seen is like $20 they'll do. The reason why it's so cheap is, number one, they're experts at it. They do it all the time. Number two, they're not doing this stuff manually. They're writing a couple functions in Excel, and they're doing all this data. So it might take them literally 5 minutes. Okay, it could, if it's more complex, then it might take them a half an hour, whatever it might be. But they're going to give you a quote, and typically, like I said, it's going to be anywhere from $25 to, you might get some ridiculous ones at like $500 or something. But typically, what we would pay is $20 for that, or $30 is reasonable, something in that range. That's well worth it for us to outsource that step, because then you don't have to spin your wheels on Excel. And if you do that, then the answer to your question is no, you don't need anything to do with Excel, because the only thing about data, regarding data, is you have to make sure it's in the right format when you import it. Once it gets into the system, it doesn't require Excel at all. Okay, so but if you don't, if you want to do the processing yourself and you have a little bit of experience in Excel and you want to go that way, then yeah, I mean, the answer to your question is yeah, you can use Excel to get it in the right format so that you can import your list. Okay, but generally speaking, the answer to your question is no, you don't need Excel. You just need to make sure that your list that you're importing has those 11 required fields. Okay, I think that's clear. Vince says, also, where is the opt-in page? Okay, so here, Vince, all your sites can be accessed in this section right here, My Sites. You have a buying site, opt-in page, and selling site. Now, if you click on this and you don't see opt-in page, there's one of two things. Either you have like not a pro version of the Investment Dominator, because the basic version of the Investment Dominator only comes with the buying site, so you might want to upgrade. Now, if you do have the pro version of the Investment Dominator and you don't see the opt-in page here, then you want to look under Customize Site, and you want to look under the Selling site, Website Settings Selling, and you want to look what you did right here, because by default, the value of this disable opt-in page is set to no, meaning you have an opt-in page. But some people want to disable our opt-in page, so they click yes. Now, as soon as you disable it, you're not going to see it. I'm going to save that. You're not going to see it here. You can see that it goes away because you've disabled the opt-in page. Also, if you go into your selling site, you're not going to see the opt-in page either. It goes straight to your selling site. Okay, so that is an option in there. So I don't know if you came in here and checked yes on that or not, but you want to check that. If not, then it's probably your version of the Investment Dominator. Like I said, the basic version does not come with that, and you'll have to upgrade to get that. All right, moving on. Steve says, how do I download my files from Agent Pro to the Investment Dominator? Download my files from Agent Pro to the Investment Dominator. Again, Steve, this is an Agent Pro question now. So Agent Pro is a third-party company. So I'm not going to answer that, especially on this call, because number one, they're a third-party company. So the best way is to call Agent Pro and ask them to walk you through how to download the list from there. Having said that, on the on the Land Profit Generator site, so if you log into your actual course and you look under video tutorials, we do have a tutorial on Agent Pro there that you can watch. That's basically Henry, who was one of our coaches. He went in there, he screen captured himself in Agent Pro, because I think he uses Agent Pro himself, and it shows you how to select the list that you want. It shows you how to download it, and that would answer your question. But again, this is not an Investment Dominator question. This is more of an Agent Pro question, and Agent Pro is a third-party company. Now, also, Steve and anybody else listening, if for some reason that when you go through that video tutorial that I'm talking about, that's in the that's in the land profit generator, and if things do not look exactly the way that it looks on there, keep in mind that this is a third-party company, so when they change something, it's going to change. Like if they might change the layout of it. So again, I'm going to come back to this concept of when you're dealing with a third-party company, the best way to deal with them is to contact them directly, because they could change their pricing, they can change their layout of the program, they can change the data that you can pull at any time. And because they're a third-party company, they're not going to let us know that. We might hear reports from users like, hey, I went into Agent Pro and all of a sudden it's not working right now. And if we do, we'll post something about that, like, hey, we just heard that it's not working. But it is a third-party company, and they have at any time they have the ability to change anything on there. So the best way is to give them a call, ask them to walk you through how to download it. If you're having problems with that, take a look at the video tutorial that we already have on the Land Profit Generator site, which is American Tax Sale Institute. You log in with your username and password and look at the video tutorial section, and you'll see a tutorial called Agent Pro in there 247, and you can watch that. And if everything is good to go and they haven't changed anything, then you can just follow along that, and that's how you would be able to download that. All right, moving on to another question here. We have Brian. Brian says, Alex, I have set up a new column names myself, and only have trouble with the type column. Can you show me how to get it done later and upload a list? Show you how to get it done later. I mean, if you want, if this is, Brian, if this is your first list you're having problems, I always say, if it's your first list, I want to get you started on this. So go under the helps section, upload your list under this tick in the middle option. That's going to come to me, where it says attachments, upload your list. I will send you a quick video on how to format that list, because I got to take a look at your list. I don't know how it's formatted, because everything is based on the list that you get, and then based on that we create rules. If it's your first list, then I'm happy to help you out with that, but really ongoing, this is kind of like a business, right? You're creating a business, and as part of your business, you want to hire somebody that has those skills. So like go on Upwork, like we just talked about, post this sample job, try to find somebody that can do it for $20, because you could literally send them that somebody that does data processing all the time. They can follow the process that we outlined under that user guide article, which talks about the type field and things, and they can follow those rules and know how that translates to data processing. So they can create a rule on that and do it for $20. You want to get to that point where you have somebody you're working with on an ongoing basis, because as you get more lists, you can't just send them off to us, because our support is really for the investment dominator, not for list processing, right? That's an Excel thing, but I'm happy to take a look at your list the first time, get you started on it. I mean, we're all about trying to get you to get your first deal. So we're constantly doing whatever it takes to get people to that point. So send me your list if you have a question on it. I would like to see the list itself, because the answer to your question has to do with how your list is set up in the first place. It's not, depending on where you get the list from, they might have 4 columns where the owner's first name is in there and everything's jumbled up. And so the answer to that is quite different than if it's like an Agent Pro list, for example, who typically has it in just an owner's first name, an owner's last name, and I think they have a separate field for the company. And in that case, it's very easy to make a rule on that. So send me the list, and I'll send you a quick video, like 5-minute video, 2-minute video, on how you would actually go about creating a rule in Excel for that and processing that, and then from then on, post something on Upwork, try to get somebody that can do this on an ongoing basis. All right, hopefully that helps. We got a few more here from Vince. So we got, what does the opt-in page do? Good question. I actually did want to cover that in this call, so I'm glad you asked it. even though this call is quite long. I do want to cover that because and possibly we'll go into more detail next week. But as we go through these videos or these live classes, I am kind of trying to keep on track with, what are the first things that you do. We covered that in the first call. Today we covered in what you do when you actually start getting calls back. Then the next thing after that is you buy the properties, and the next thing after that is you're actually marketing the properties. So that's where your question comes in. What does the opt-in page do? The opt-in page is a page that and actually I am going to refer to the land profit generator because this is something that is a concept that Jack talks about in the course itself, in the marketing modules. So there's like I think 10 marketing modules. So I can't explain 10 marketing modules to you guys in 5 minutes or 2 minutes. What I would want you to do is go to the investment Dominator, take a look at go to the land profit generator, log in, and take a look at, I think it starts at module 13 and beyond. You want to start looking at those modules because that's where Jack's talking about our marketing concepts. Everything that Jack talks about in the marketing concepts is going to apply to this yellow tab of your investment Dominator, which is how, and to answer your question quickly, the buyers, the opt-in page is just a simple page, and it looks like this. This is the default page. It's a simple page that basically tells the user, I can do two things. I can call your phone number, I can read about you, and if I'm interested in what you have to say there, I can either opt into the page right here with my first name and my email address, or I can just leave and close out of the page, okay? It is kind of what it sounds. It basically forcing people to opt in. Now, obviously they can not opt in and they just leave, but you don't want to talk to those people anyways. You want to get to the reason for this page is you want the people that are interested in buying land to opt in. That doesn't mean that they buy from you right then. It just means that they're interested in land. Once you have collected these people, they're going to be ending up on your buyers list. And we'll talk about more about this next week when we talk about marketing. But the marketing is a process of taking somebody that's just a prospect, meaning somebody that has an interest in land, taking them through that process of them becoming a lead, and then eventually a buyer, and then eventually a repeat buyer, okay? So it's a sales process that you're taking a person through. It's very rare that somebody is going to find you on the internet and then give you $10,000 that same instant for your land. It's a process of them trusting you. And in order for them to trust you, you've got to get their phone number, their email address, and you've got to be in contact with them, right? Because otherwise they don't know you. So you gotta send them some emails about yourself. They gotta know something about you. They gotta trust you enough to give you their email address in the first place. If they can't even trust you with their email address, how are they going to give you $10,000 for a piece of property? So it's a process, right? Again, it's all covered in the land profit generator. But as it relates to the investment Dominator, we're collecting people that are interested in land on our buyers list, and then adding over time information about them. So as we call them, we're adding or they call us, we're adding their phone number. We're collecting information like how much can they put down on a property, how much can they afford in monthly payments. We're taking notes on them. We're figuring out what state they live in, if they're near the property or whatever. What property are they interested in to begin with? Are they interested in one of the properties in particular or multiple properties? So all this is being collected over time, and that's what's building your buyers list. And the first step of that buyers list is your opt-in page. So whenever you run an ad on LandWatch, run an ad on Facebook, run an ad on Craigslist, you're sending them to the opt-in page in a perfect world, because you want to collect their information first, and then once you collect their information, they go to your selling site and they see all your properties. In this case, I don't have any properties right here in this demo site, so it looks pretty blank, but this page would have all of your properties that you have for sale or have sold or are pending. So as soon as they opt in, they're going to your selling site, but it's the gateway into your selling site. It's like, hey, if you're really interested, trust me enough with your email address, and then I'm going to send you my deals. So that's the process. Hopefully that answered your questions. We'll talk about that more next week. Vince says, your other comment was your opt-in page looks like your selling site. If your opt-in page looks like your selling site, one or two things happen. Either you've disabled your opt-in page, like I just explained before, under customized site, there's an option to disable it, or you've opted in yourself. And when you opt in, we save a little tracking cookie on your computer to denote that you've opted in, right? Because if somebody comes back to the opt-in page, and they've already opted in, we send them directly to your selling site. We don't want them to opt in multiple times. So that's so those are the two scenarios that you might find yourself having, where you're going to your opt-in page, but it's being directed. You're being directed to your selling site. Either you've already opted in because you were testing things out as a user, and then therefore you're going to be directed over there based on that tracking cookie, or you've disabled it under customized site. So you want to take a look at those two things. And if it's the latter, if it's basically you've tested some stuff out, you can delete your cookies in your browser, and that's how you would get rid of that redirect. Okay. Another comment from Vince is, I think I may have put the wrong domain on it. Okay, if you put the wrong domains, your custom domains are going to be under customized site. You have two domains settings. So one's going to be under your buying site. This right here is where you would put your custom domain for your buying site. Now, under the website settings selling site, this is where you put your selling site domain. These are the only places where you can put your custom domain. So if you thought that you maybe mismatched them and you have your selling site domain here listed versus your buying site domain, then what you're going to want to do is come back, basically come back over here, change this to your correct, buying site domain, right? And then you're going to hit change domain. That'll change that. And then you come back over here to your website settings, change this to your correct selling site domain, and then hit change domain. Okay, that's how you can fix that if you accidentally mismatched your domains. All right, pretty simple. Save it at the end to save your changes, and that'll remap out your sites. I will let you know, though, if you've already sent out your letters and you've used the wrong domain, make note that if the letters are in the mail and the letters contain the wrong domain, I at the very least, wouldn't change it until you get the majority of your responses back. Because again, if somebody reads your letter and they read your domain in there, they're going to go to whatever domain that is. They don't care if it's your selling or your buying site. They're going to read whatever domain is in the letter. If they go to that and all of a sudden they see your selling site, that's going to be weird. They're not going to know what to do. You're going to lose offer requests. So keep that in mind. If you've already sent out your letters, then keep that in mind. If you haven't yet, then it doesn't matter. Just go over there and switch your domains out. Nobody's gonna be affected by that. But if you have sent out your letters already, you want to take a look at some of the letters you sent out and make sure that you're not mismatching your domains in that case. Okay. Hopefully that makes sense. All right. That is all the questions that I see in here, which is awesome, because we did go super over time, which is fine. What I'm going to say is, if you have a question from now until next week, because we do have another call exact same time next week, Wednesday, and if you guys are already registered for this call, you're already registered for that call. So don't worry about re-registering for the call. You're going to get information. Now, if I might, since we had so many questions on this call, I might add another session actually for the next week as well, just so that we can try to get these calls to half hour, but also make sure everybody's questions are answered. So I actually might add some more sessions. If I add more sessions, you're going to be automatically added to the sessions as well. So again, you don't need to re-register for that. But the next official scheduled one is next week, same time. And that one you're already registered for. And again, if you can't make it, don't worry. It's going to be recorded. It's going to be put on the site. This recording right now for this call today will be posted in the same manner as the other ones on the user guide. So you can just literally come back here tonight or tomorrow. I'll probably have it posted, and you'll see the date of today. You click on it, and you'll see the replay. Okay? And in the meantime, obviously, you don't need to wait a whole week to get your answers, your questions answered. Just simply go to Help, click on the middle option, unless it's something very quick. If it's something more technical, click on the middle option, fill out this form. I will answer you typically in the next hour or two, or if you ask it after hours, in the next day. And then this one right here, it says stuck on something. This is more if you have a quick question where we, typically, this goes to our general support. So basically, they'll probably send you just a user guide article to answer your question. But if you have something for me in particular, or if it's more technical, click on the middle option, fill out the form. This comes to me. I take a look at it. I'll answer you in a few hours. If you have like a list like we talked about earlier, you can send that to me. I'll take a look at that. And we'll go from there. All right, guys. I haven't talked so much in my life, so I'm going to end it at that. Thanks, Paul. I see your comment there. And I will talk to you guys next week. All right. Bye-bye.